Hi. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's great to be here with you all today. This is actually my first chance to really speak to the Berlin tech community, so it's a pleasure to be here. And it's my first time at Funkhaus. I've been living in Berlin for a little over 6 months now, and I've heard how incredible this place is. I've yet to see any music here, but it is really awesome. So thank you, Tech Open Air, for having me here. What I wanted to talk about today, something that's near and dear to our hearts at SoundCloud, is about the continuing evolution of the musician's journey in a world now with widely proliferated technology and tools. And I wanted to focus on a topic that I think is really just starting to bubble up and starting to evolve, which is how will content be funded now that we live in this environment that we've started to take for granted. So I'll walk through that a bit and hopefully have some time for questions at the end. So a couple of things that we know. Music production has changed forever. The creative process now is one where the availability and power of tools is totally unprecedented. That continues to move forward, but we've kind of passed that adoption level where we're starting to take this for granted, that the huge studio, with the purely analog mixing desk, which is a beautiful, gorgeous thing in the right applications, can also be, at least power comparable to that, can be had in largely consumer technology today. And that's created an explosion in creativity and the democratization of production. At the same time, distribution now has also become much more direct, with much more power directly in the hands of a creator, right? So what you see even in this image here is, there's the studio on the table, and up on the big screen TV is essentially a distribution platform. Of course, it happens to be SoundCloud, but the idea that a creator can reach a global audience directly through tools without any permission, again, it's a totally profound shift that's happened over the last few decades, but now is one that we start to take for granted, and creators are starting to use it in all sorts of interesting ways. And what I wanted to focus on beyond that is, okay, if we now have technology-enabled production, we have technology-enabled distribution, what does this mean for the business side? And specifically, I want to look at the investment side. Right? How are artists going to be invested in? And I think that there are lessons in the evolution of the venture capital space and how that has applied to technology and the way that we see that evolving that might give us some sense of direction for how it might evolve. And frankly, some of it's already underway in some exciting examples. So first, I wanted to say, I firmly believe that capital will still play a key role in the evolution and success and growth of musicians. Now, I think that when that capital comes into play, how that comes into play, is in the process of evolving, which is very exciting. But the role of capital as fuel is absolutely going to continue to play a key role, whether that's in the form of a label of any size, a management company, other potential investors. And really, it's that the spark and the flame to which you want to be applying this capital is where it's evolving, I think, the most rapidly, because the spark and the flame, while it's also about human instinct and who might potentially have great cultural impact, it's also increasingly about information. Right? It's seeking out information and the artist's ability to generate information that's ultimately going to benefit investors and creators alike. And I think I put a quote in here from Matt Ball from the Redef team that I think kind of frames the situation pretty well, which is, look, even if you look 50 years or however many decades into the future, the idea that artists, creators need infrastructure and support, that's not going away. Right? But what's changing because of the tools available, and I would say because of the information available, the terms on which and the pace at which they take investment is going to evolve quite rapidly. And as an example, I wanted to throw out kind of what we take to be the modern version of, or the modern version of the VC world. And the two things that I think really define it are that investment is staged, right? So this is not just one giant investment up front, and that there's shared upside along the way. And the trade-offs for these stages, whether it's a bootstrap situation where an entrepreneur is getting things off the ground themselves, an angel round, a C round, A, B, C, a large growth round, whether or not you go public, but an IPO, generally considered sort of the model exit. What we're playing for is a trade-off between the share that the entrepreneur owns and ultimately the total value being created. And that value being created is accelerated by capital, but it's a staged trade-off between the creator and the investor, right? The pitch that doesn't happen in VC communities is the creator walks into the VC pitch and says, hey, here's my idea, I'd like to raise some money. And the VC says, that's great, so here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna sell us the idea now, we're gonna give you a little bit of money, and then we'll let you know later how it turns out, right? That's not how it goes. It's because of this staged approach that the entrepreneur has the opportunity to take capital when she or he needs it, and crucially to generate the information, then to demonstrate or decide when further investment should take place. So what underpins the VC industry's ability to work this way is to have staged investments, to have shared upside, and frankly to have both sides feel really great about it. It's because it's all underpinned by data, and it's this iterative process where funding, you do a little bit of product development, you raise funding, and then you grow, and the key piece is what are the proof points then that you may take back to the next funding round, right? So this exchange of information, the critical point is that it benefits both sides, right? That we say that record deals work the way that they do because labels are just trying to control everything. It's just as much because they don't have information. And so now artists have the ability to provide that information and maintain control of the process as they continually raise funds to develop different stages of their career. So if we sort of overlay that onto music, what might that start to look like? And I think the key thing to think about is the middle bar here is what are the stages? And this is very much wet cement, like this is happening in real time in the world, but what you're seeing is certainly on platforms like SoundCloud, is the artists know. The currency is certainly they're there to create and put their vision in the world and connect with an audience. But the true currency, in a sense, from their business perspective is the data, right? It's the information. It's how do I take this information then back to potential investors? Whether that's someone where maybe I want to do a demo deal, right? And I don't actually even want to sell my rights. I want to offer some claim maybe on my revenue stream, but not actually sell my IP. It might be a distribution deal. It might be a publishing deal. And at the sort of the far end, while something like a 360 deal is a construct that's working itself out, the idea is if we can look at the journey of the creator more in these stages and invite investment and actually determine the appropriate value of investments, again, both sides win and the overall market can grow. Creators are able to maintain more control earlier in their career, and likewise, investors of all kind are able to make better decisions about balancing risk and the upside potential. I think one of the best analogies that I've heard on this, I was sitting with the CEO of a company called Empire, and Ghazi, who is a super thoughtful guy, and I think one of the people actually making this real for creators today, he described to me, he said, I think about the traditional industry in terms of the way that it interacts and invests in creators as a light switch. It's basically on or off. It's either you're in or you're out, and that's typically the way that deals were done. And he said, what I want to be is a dimmer. And to me, that just totally landed on the point is that this is about creating a spectrum of opportunities so that capital can actually play the role it's meant to play, which is a strategic accelerant, right? It's not meant to be a shot in the dark when neither side has information, because that creates inequity down the line. However, when both sides can actually choose a place that makes sense based on the information available, where they can both share in the upside, that creates really interesting possibilities. So again, it's this evolution from the on-off to a spectrum of choices of how we will invest in the creation of music is something that I'm incredibly excited about. And look, we see it out there in the world. two incredibly successful artists. You hear them both talk about their journeys, and speaking with their management teams. Chance and Post are two of the largest artists to come out of the native online ecosystem, both of whom certainly use SoundCloud to get off the ground. But they ultimately, again, made different choices on that spectrum, but both had fantastic results. All right, Chance has decided to continue to stay truly independent, and he raises capital as he needs it via partnerships and other means. He's working on a new record right now. Post also generated a ton of momentum and information, and ultimately decided to sign with UMG, and had the biggest record of the year last year. Right? So to me, these examples speak to the power of the movement that we're seeing emerge here, and frankly, that it's ultimately all about choice. But the more that we can put this information out into the world, get this in not only the creators' hands, but also in potential business partners' hands, this is how we continue to create these options and choices. So I will leave it there. I'd love to answer any questions you might have. I think we have a couple of minutes. I think you all are heading to lunch after this, so I won't keep you much longer. But look, we at SoundCloud are extremely passionate about this evolution. I just leave you with a couple of the small investments that we put out there today, which is getting behind a few artists, directly from the UK and from Berlin. So these are some of the outdoors that you may see if you're around town today. But thank you all for your time, and I'd love to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Kerry, would you mind sitting down for a moment? Then we can go through some of the audience questions. You can still submit them if you want. Just go to slido.com, fill in #TOA, and you can also upvote other questions you think are really interesting. So one of the big questions that the audience had was, what are you planning to change about SoundCloud's monetization strategy?
We actually, the main change is less of a change, it's sort of a refocus, meaning we've really refocused on the core commitment to creators. SoundCloud, our goal is to be the platform where creators come first, to share their work with the world and give them the tools that they need, ultimately to build an audience and generate information and momentum that then they can use to develop their career however they wish. So we are and will continue to be a large streaming and listening service, and we are always going to be a two-sided ecosystem between creators and listeners, but we really have refocused on the creator as the core driver of that ecosystem and providing them the very best tools that we can, which is also a very different business and a very healthy business as compared with some other streaming services that may only be a delivery of listening experiences.
Interesting. And some people want to know what your business inspiration is.
My business inspiration. Well, I don't know if this is meant to be asking for an individual, but I'll sort of go a different direction, which is, look, for me, it's always been about that intersection of creators and technology and allowing creators really to realize the full power of technology to share their vision with the world and connect with consumers of their work around the world. And I started in the digital music space back in the super dark ages of the late 90s when we were literally streaming. It wasn't even called streaming yet, but we were streaming audio and video over 28K modems, and it was like a complete joke, but we thought it was absolutely amazing. And that potential of connecting creator consumer on a worldwide basis, again, with a truly permissionless system, is what's always inspired me, and it's why I'm so happy to be at SoundCloud.
And you went from a tiny streaming tiny thumbnails to up to 4K with Vimeo. Yeah,
I remember when we went to 100K streaming, and everyone was like, "Why would you ever need that?" And same with Vimeo. It was why would anyone want HD on the internet, right? But the exciting thing about the kind of the inevitability is really been an amazing inspiration over the last couple of decades. But that's why now I think one of the the areas of focus is, okay, we have all these tools, and the tools will certainly continue to evolve, but how do we really get into the nitty-gritty of also making sure that the business models continue to evolve in a way where all participants benefit.
And last question.
Yep.
How is SoundCloud going to realize the VC-style investment strategy for its creators?
Well, I think our role is absolutely, again, we want to be that place where creators come first, and a critical part of our role is allowing that information to flow, right? Allowing and creating a platform where creators can, again, interact directly with an audience without permission and start to generate that information, because we hear it from both sides, which is exciting for the creators, but whether it be a small label, like I said, a management company, publishers, whomever, they are so hungry for the data because it just helps them make better decisions. So that, at least for the near term, that's the key role that we can play.
Very cool. Thank you again. Let's give them a round of applause. That was really great. Thank you so much.